So we've been talking a lot about Giannis Antetokounmpo and Kevin Durant because as a Heat fan, those are the guys that get me the most excited. We've also discussed upgrading at point guard, whether that may be Ja Morant or Trae Young. But there is another star who may potentially be on the trade market who has been linked to the Heat in the past. And of course, I'm talking about Lauri Markkanen. His name was circulating in the rumor mills once again because just a couple days ago, Greg Schwartz of Bleacher Report put out a trade idea to land him with the Miami Heat. We'll kind of get into that full trade breakdown a little bit later, but as far as just straight up adding Lauri Markkanen to this Heat team, I'm not going to lie to you, I'm a bit hesitant, and that's because of the massive contract that he is on now. Next season, he will be making $46 million, followed by $46 million the year after that, and then $49 million, and then $53.5 million the following season after that at the age of 31 years old. So that's obviously a lot of money for a lot of years for a guy who I think we can all agree can't be the 1A on a championship team. And of course, that's been a big discussion amongst Heat fans for the last couple of months now regarding Tyler Hero and his upcoming extension, and also Bam Adebayo, who already got his extension. I think most Heat fans are in a point right now where we don't believe Tyler Hero deserves that kind of money. Speaking of money, I'm going to give someone who subscribes right now all the money that I have in my pocket. So for the 55.2% of y'all that are not subscribed, make sure to hit that button because you never know how much you're going to get. I'm not going to say I'm rich, but I did bet a lot of Terry Rozier unders last year, if you're catching my drift. So make sure to hit that button. Let's get back into the video. Because we've seen him in the postseason as the guy the last couple of years, and obviously he kind of flamed out a bit. So we do have some concerns there regarding Bam Adebayo. He already got his money, and when that extension kicks in a couple of years, it will be kind of scary if he doesn't bring it on the offensive end because he did struggle a little bit to start this season. So bringing in Lauri Markkanen, who really kind of regressed over the last couple of years, that is certainly scary when he's going to be taking up about 30% of the salary cap. That's a lot of money that we're talking about. And my concerns are even elevated when you consider that last season is actually when the big money started kicking in. He got $42 million last year. But it was the previous year before that where he was only getting paid $17 million. So he was a great value contract for quite a while. That probably would have been the time to try to go after Lauri Markkanen trade so you can get him when he was still a great value piece. But right now, there's a lot of concerns surrounding him. I'm not saying I wouldn't go after it, but I do need to point out that is a lot of money for him. And my other concerns regarding the money is last year when he did have that big jump in salary, we also saw a big decrease in production where he was only at 19 points per game and he had 6 rebounds while shooting 42% from the field and 35% from 3, which is on 8.5 attempts. So the efficiencies aren't great, especially that overall field goal percentage. When you're 7 feet tall, you should not be shooting 42%, even if you are primarily a jump shooter like Lauri Markkanen is. And as a whole, 35% on that kind of volume from 3 isn't terrible. Again, especially if your 7-footer is getting you that kind of shooting. But you got to compare his numbers to 2 years prior where he was an all-star and where his trade value was kind of at an all-time high, because just 2 years prior, he was at 26 points per game, which is 7 points higher than he was last season. He was at 49.9, so 50% from the field, which is 8 percentage points higher than last season, and he was at 39% from 3, which was about 4.5 points higher, or percentage points higher than it was his previous season. So quite a bit of drop off from that season where he was really looking like a budding superstar at the age of 25 years old. Now, his numbers were not bad last year. I want to emphasize that, but they're not quite what they were. And quite frankly, the money that he got last year, the production that he gave you last year, that's not worth the money that he was getting. And also, as a Heat fan, I am a little bit worried that there might be a little bit of Hassan Whiteside syndrome there. Y'all might know I love Hassan Whiteside. That's my guy. But I will not deny the fact that once he got paid, he stopped caring. He played with a different level of intensity and not for the better. So I'm worried that we might be having some of that with Lauri Markkanen here, although I don't know his personal makeup, so I am just speculating. But Lauri Markkanen is not the only player that Greg Schwartz of Bleacher Report had coming to the Miami Heat, because the full trade, in addition to him, had us receiving Collin, Sexton, and Jordan Clarkson. And then the Utah Jazz would get Andrew Wiggins, Terry Rozier, Duncan Robinson, Nikola Jovic, and 2 first-round picks. We'll start with the Jazz side of things. Of course, Duncan and Terry, those are their expiring deals, so it's not such a big deal there. They'll have a lot of money come off the books the following offseason, so that is obviously very beneficial to them. When you're trading a guy who makes as much as Lauri Markkanen, it's going to be hard to get that much expiring contracts in return. So that is always a place where I felt the Heat might have an edge in some of these trade discussions, is the fact that we have so much expiring money that we can send to another team, which will really help alleviate their books in the short term. Because any team making a massive trade is not going to want to take on a bunch of long-term contracts unless they're getting a star, of course. So I do think that's beneficial to the Jazz there. As far as Andrew Wiggins, he's a guy that can certainly play there. I mean, they would be pretty small on small forward, or pretty short on small forward. They have a ton of young guards. Like, they'd still have Keontae George and Isaiah Collier. That's part of the reason that I definitely think they need to do some sort of guard consolidation trade this offseason, and that likely means moving on from Jordan Clarkson and Collin Sexton, which they would be doing in this trade. But then they also have plenty of bigs too, like John Collins, Walker Kessler, and Kyle Filipowski, who really came on the second half of his rookie year last season. So Wiggins would definitely play. He'd be basically the only, small forward on that team that you can trust. I mean, maybe they could trust him. Regular season Wiggins for the Heat was good. Postseason Wiggins, not so much. But I still think he can play. It's just for the Jazz at 30 years old, he's not really a piece for their future. So I can see them really showcasing him for the first half of the season, because he will get minutes on that team. And maybe they flip him at the deadline for additional assets. I still think Wiggins could net you a first-round pick, just because the contract, while it's not a little amount of money, it's about 30 years for 3 more years. It's not insane, because he still does provide you a pretty decent production on both sides of the ball. So I could see the Jazz flipping him for maybe a first-round pick down the line in February towards the trade deadline, especially when you consider that they will be showcasing him a lot. So I expect his numbers to have a little bit of a boost there. But then it's, of course, Nikola Jovic and the 2 first-round picks, which is really the best assets that Utah will be getting here. I know a lot of Heat fans may think that Nikola Jovic can turn into Lauri Markkanen, but they have really different games. Lauri Markkanen is much larger. He's about 2 inches taller, over 30 pounds heavier. And I know Nikola Jovic has been putting on weight, but I can't ever see him being the size of Markkanen. I also think that Lauri is a much better shooter. Jovic shot the ball really well the last couple of seasons, but Markkanen is just more versatile in terms of his ability to shoot from the mid-range, post-ups, pull-ups, where Nikola Jovic was mostly a catch-and-shoot player. But of course, that could change if he was in an offense that was more centered around him. However, Jovic definitely has more upside as a playmaker and running in transition. So I still think that he's a very exciting player. And at 21 years old, he's someone that Utah Jazz fans should definitely get excited about. I mean, if in a trade you're able to get a 6'10 guy with handle that can shoot the ball, I think that's something that teams should be excited about. So as far as the Heat's young talents, we'll talk about Ware, Jaime, and Jovic. I do think that Ware probably has the most trade value, just because he's a 7-foot athletic freak that can stretch the floor. But then after him, I do think Nikola Jovic follows him pretty closely. And Jaime Jaquez at this point, an older prospect, wasn't great last year. His trade value at this moment is probably negative, but I do think he could have a little bit of a resurgence in year 3 to maybe build up some of that trade value next year. But right now, I don't think he's someone that Utah would necessarily value. So I do think Jovic would have to be a part of this trade. And then the 2 first-round picks, that's kind of steep, to be honest, for a guy that had the production of Markkanen last year. But if he can return to the form that he was at the year prior, or even the year prior to that, before he was paid, then it's definitely worth it for Miami. So a bit of a risk, because if you trade 2 first-round picks for a guy to shoot an inefficient 19 points per game, that's not good. But there's still the hope that maybe he could be more than that, especially since he'd be playing alongside a Bam Adebayo, Tyler Hero, guys that could help alleviate the offensive role, or at least so the defense isn't solely focused on Markkanen. That could help open up things for him and make the game a lot easier to get that efficiency back up. But from the Miami Heat perspective now, the big question is, what will you get from Lauri Markkanen? He is 28 years old, so he's not super old. I think he fits the timeline pretty well. So I am relatively optimistic for the reasons we just mentioned that he can have a little bit of an uptick in his efficiency next season. But yeah, he fits the timeline pretty well with Tyler and Bam. He can also play some small forward. He did so with Utah, but he really did a lot of it with Cleveland next to a rookie Evan Mobley and Jared Allen, which is really crazy to think about, that Cavs team had Markkanen, Mobley, and Allen. And they weren't a bad team. They finished 44-38. But of course, the Cavs just took a massive step once they traded Lauri Markkanen for Donovan Mitchell, who's just on another tier of a player. And plus, Evan Mobley, of course, got a lot more experience. But it would have been fun to see what that team could do. However, I love the idea for the Miami Heat of playing a 7-footer at small forward, especially after all of these years of going small ball, playing Caleb Martin at the 4, then Hayward Highsmith at the 4, and then PJ Tucker at the 4, who, yes, PJ Tucker plays bigger than he is, but why not get someone who is actually big? Why is the Heat's mantra always to get guys who play bigger than they are? Get someone who's actually big, and that would be Lauri Markkanen. The Heat did do a little bit of that this year when they had the lineup of Nikola Jovic, Bam Adebayo, and Khalil Ware, and I really liked that lineup a lot. We started to see a little bit of it every game, but then Jovic got hurt when he broke his hand, so it's not a huge sample size, but I thought that was a pretty decent and versatile lineup when we saw it. So I do think Markkanen could fit pretty well at that 3 slot. And then, of course, a lot of teams right now are running the 2 big man lineups that is kind of seeing success again. You're seeing Kat and Mitchell Robinson, Şengün, Steven Adams, Isaiah Hartenstein, and Chet Holmgren. So if all these teams are having success with a 2-man lineup, why not run a 3 big man lineup? You know, I think that would be pretty cool. But in addition to Markkanen fitting the timeline, so does Collin Sexton, who is only 26 years old. And I don't really think I have to sell you on him. I think most Heat fans at this point kind of love the idea of Collin Sexton. They call him Young Bull for a reason, because he plays with tenacity on the defensive end. And I've always loved him since high school, back when he had that very viral clip of him just staring down the defender who was staring at him first. I thought that was hilarious. I thought it showed incredible confidence by the young kid. That's when I knew he was going to be a great player. I also will never forget that game when he was at Alabama, and due to injuries and players fouling out, Alabama had 3 available players left, one of them being Collin Sexton, and he very nearly single-handedly carried them to a win with 3 players. It was a very close game in the fourth quarter, but they fell just short. But the fact he was even able to compete with 2 less players than the other team on the court really let me know that he's an absolute dog and a hell of a player. And he had a great last couple of seasons with Utah as well. Last year, he averaged 18-4 on 48% from the field, 41% from 3 on 4 attempts. So his shooting has been really efficient for the last couple of seasons, actually, not just last year. He's only 6'3", but I do think he could play next to Tyler just because of the defense that he provides. And Collin Sexton and Davion Mitchell would be an incredible 1-2 punch as well. Imagine opposing guards all game having to go from being guarded by Young Bull to off nights. Ooh, that would be fun to watch and will really help bring back Heat culture. Turn it from the marketing scheme that it is now back to the actual motto of this team and really make it mean something. I think that would be super cool. And the Heat would be able to resign Davion Mitchell. They'd still be about $13.6 million under the first apron. And I'm hoping to get Davion, for no more than 12. So they would be able to re-sign him there. And then the last guy the Heat are getting in this trade is Jordan Clarkson, which is the epitome of the bench microwave scorer mold. Kind of what the Heat were hoping Terry Rozier would be a little bit. I think there is some value in that type of player. Maybe he's the type of guy you can bring in off the bench when the offense is looking kind of cold and needs a bit of a jolt. However, I'm not particularly a fan of that mold of player, and I don't think a one-dimensional guy of his talent level will be a heavy rotation piece on this team. I know his points per game has been good for a while. He even averaged 21 points per game 3 years ago. But let's not be fooled like the Heat were with Terry Rozier's 24 points per game. The Heat should probably stop taking these volume scores on bad teams because the reality is it's just not winning basketball. But either way, Jordan Clarkson and I guess Collin Sexton as well, they are both expiring deals next year, so we would keep some semblance of cap flexibility for next offseason in the same way we would have if we had just kept Terry Rozier and Duncan Robinson. So a little bit of the best in both worlds, some pros, some cons. The pros are if Sexton and Clarkson don't work out, or maybe Luka becomes a free agent, the Heat would have some cap space to work with. But of course, the cons is, well, maybe Sexton plays great and then he walks in free agency and we lose him for nothing. That, of course, would be a bad case scenario. But the Heat overall would have a very intriguing starting lineup of Collin Sexton, Tyler Hero, Lauri Markkanen, Bam Adebayo, and Khalil Ware. That really does intrigue me because the first four guys have all scored over 40 points or more in their career before. So they're all very capable scorers. Like, I really wonder how many teams have a starting lineup with four players that have scored at least 40 points before in their career. Like, scoring 40 points, I know it happens often in today's NBA, but not everybody can do it. But the Collin Sexton has done it multiple times. Of course, Lauri and Hero have done it, and Bam's done it once, but he's got very close a couple of times. So I do think there'd be a very interesting dynamic offensively there. I think you'd have a nice mix of inside and outside scoring from all five players, because, of course, Khalil Ware can do a little bit of both as well. And then defensively, Collin Sexton would kind of provide what Hero lacks in the backcourt. And then Bam Adebayo and Khalil Ware could help clean up for Lauri Markkanen, who's an adequate but not great defender. But of course, in that front court, you would still have Bam's exterior defense on the perimeter. Since he won't have to play center next year, he can actually guard some of the more mobile players. And then you have Khalil Ware inside, blocking shots, to turn shots, doing all those great things that he does. So is this team a championship contender? I mean, maybe they could make a finals run if everyone plays to their potential, especially in an Eastern Conference with no Tatum next year and Giannis potentially going west. Maybe they can make the finals. I'm not sure they'd be good enough to beat OKC. But I don't know. If everyone plays at their best, then yeah, of course, they could win a championship. But I really think you could say that about any team, truthfully. They'd be a nice, well-rounded team, though. And if the season goes on next year and they're like a 3-4 seed, they would still have another tradable first-round pick, since the Miami Heat currently have 3 with the potential to get 4. But they currently have 3. Only 2 of them would be going to Utah. So maybe we could flip Tyler Hero and that extra first-round pick to go after one of those guards that we've been talking about, like Ja Morant, Trae Young, or LaMelo Ball. So there is still some flexibility to improve the roster, which I like about this trade as well. So I think I would definitely do this trade, at least if the alternative was running it back. I mean, I would almost do anything instead of running it back. That is the worst case scenario. But I probably would rather hold out for Giannis or Kevin Durant or someone. I don't know. Just because, obviously, Giannis. That's probably a pipe dream, and it doesn't make sense to wait for a pipe dream. But that Lauri Markkanen contract does scare me. So maybe this is like a last case scenario trade. And if that does happen, I wouldn't be mad because they would have a great team. But let me know all y'all thoughts down below. What do you think about this trade? If you think it's too much, what would you rather do instead? I'm very curious to hear what y'all think. Make sure to like the video and subscribe because I'm on a grind to hit 8,000 subs. That being said, I'll see you on tomorrow's video. Peace out, everyone.
Look, pull up in the city trying to get that dead face. Do it on my own, I don't need no dead weight. Had to kill him off, yeah, I need a head space. You know this homegrown bitch don't offend me.